This is the Red Wiggler worm mix that I started on November 17th, 2022. Today is December 4th, 2022, and I'm going to see what the differences are in the worm bin since I first started it. You can go back and you can see how I prepared this bin in the first video. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of peel back one corner and see how this mulch has done with keeping the moisture in. Normally I wouldn't go this long without checking the worm bin, but I got kind of busy, and so I'm hoping for the best. We're gonna see how this is doing. Normally I would check the worm bin at least once a week. And I would add water to it if it was low on moisture. So I'm gonna look at the corner here and see how we're doing. And so it looks like the paper is definitely starting to dry out, but there is moist paper in there too. And when I dive down, this material is nice and moist, like it should be. But if I hadn't added this leaf mulch on the top, I think everything would be bone dry in here. And there's definitely plenty of moisture in here for the worms from feeling it. But yeah, like I said, usually I won't wait so long in between checking the bin. But this time I did get busy. But one of the nice things about the red wigglers, they can be forgiving, even more forgiving than some of the other compost worms. All right, I'm going to remove this leaf mulch, and we're going to take a look and see what the worm bin looks like underneath. This is the Red Wiggler worm mix bin 17 days after I started it. I'm going to take my glove off here so I can kind of feel around and check the moisture and see what it's looking like, see how the leaves did in holding in the moisture. It looks like the edges are kind of dry around the sides here. But it's more, it's a lot more moist towards the middle. And let's just kind of dive in and see what we got here. So I'm smelling very earthy smell. I don't smell anything bad. And if you watch the first video, I have in the middle area here, I have buried some asparagus, and I can't smell it, which is a good sign. That means the microorganisms are breaking it down and there's not any bad odors. If you feed your red wigglers food scraps and you smell bad odors, then there's a chance that you're feeding too much and the microorganisms and everything in your worm bin can't keep up with the amount of food that you've put in there. So I am noticing that this paper they've already been munching on it. And there is some of this dark debris is paper. And when it comes out their tail end, after they munch it down, it looks like kind of like that. It's nice and dark. So yeah, they have been eating on the paper. I've heard that the paper, it has something in it that the worms like. I don't know the exact makeup of paper, when they're at the factory, but there's something that they add to it that's non-toxic that the worms eat up, almost like a sugar or a starch or something. And I think it is, for cardboard, they really like to eat some of the stuff that they use to hold the pieces of cardboard together. Compost worms eat paper really well. Looks like I've stumbled upon some little guys down here. Sorry to disturb you guys. I know you're working hard. See, you can see in there, they've just kind of shredded that paper up, and they just do a really good job at shredding the paper. And they're diving down because they don't like the light, which is an advantage to vermicomposting, because you can actually keep your worm bin in an area where there's light, or where you have a light on 24 hours a day, and a lot of times you won't have problems with worms escaping. In fact, that's what I do. In the garage, I use a light to keep the worms down in the worm bin. That's not a compost worm cocoon. It is probably like a beetle or a cockroach or something. When I find these, I get rid of them. But that is not a cocoon for a worm. Some other little bug crawled into this worm bin and laid that. I'm going to get rid of it because I don't want that to grow into a cockroach or something. So down here, this is nice and moist. There's plenty of moisture in this down under. This stuff up top, it's pretty dry. It's pretty dry. So another reason why it can be important to use a mulch on top, and if you can make it a mulch that you can take off easily, that's a plus, because I was able to take off that top layer of mulch real quickly, and then so now I can, to make it easier to feed the worms and everything else. It can be tempting to mess with your worms a lot and dig through and see what they're doing. I try not to do that. I try to limit it to about 1 time per week, and it seems like they breed better and make more cocoons when I just leave them alone. It's really tempting though to get in there and explore and see what they're doing. This worm's kind of folded up inside of this wad of paper here, and or he's got himself. He crawled up inside there, probably munching on this wad of paper, if you can see that. There he goes. Getting away from the light. Getting away from the light. All right. So, like I said, I try to only get in there about once a week. All right. So no cocoons yet, but that's all right. Sometimes it takes a while for them to start making cocoons. So we're going to see how the worms did on breaking this food down. And there probably will be some worms in here. All right, so I do see worms that are feeding on it. And this is the reason why I just start with a little bit of food at a time. Because as you can see, it's 17 days later. And in this stuff, it's still there. They've been feeding on it. It looks like they've even gone inside of some of the celery stalks and eaten the insides of them out. If you can see that they will get into small crevices in fruits and veggies as they're breaking down. In this one too, it's hollow, so it feels like they've eaten some of this stuff from the inside. But there's still a lot left here to break down. There's a big dude. Oh, look at him. He's right there inside of that piece of asparagus. So, oh look, there's a couple of them in here. That's pretty neat. So here They've crawled inside of this piece of asparagus, and they're eating. I'm guessing that the inside is a lot easier for them to eat. The outside of this, it has a lot of fibers on it, and must be pretty difficult for them to break down. So I'm going to open this up and see what's inside there. Oh, look at that. It's like a worm burrito. So they've just been hanging out in there. They don't mind being in close quarters at all. Look at that. It's incredible. Some people are really grossed out by worms. I am fascinated by worms. So the dark stuff is their castings that they've left behind as they're eating that asparagus down. Obviously, they're going for the easy to eat stuff first, and then the rest of the stuff, you know, they'll have to break down later. So yeah, there's probably, I don't know, 6 worms in there, 6 adult worms in there, and then some little baby worms in there too. You can see them kind of swimming around with them. Pretty cool stuff. You never know what you're going to find whenever you're looking at your worm bin. Never know what you're going to find. So they're definitely eating the food. It looks like they've munched a lot of these down. Like this one feels completely hollow. I don't feel anything in it except the shell of it, the fiber shell. And so I'm going to go ahead and add some more food scraps today since they've been eating this really well. And that's the way that I prevent overfeeding, is I check it. And it took them 17 days to break it down this far. Here in a minute, I'm going to add some banana peels and other stuff in there too. So I'm going to dig around in here for another minute and see if I can find anything else. Any surprises down in here. So I will say these are really healthy worms. I kind of neglected them. I, went 17 days without really messing with them or adding moisture. But they're doing fine. They're really thriving in here. But really, you should probably check your worms once a week and not, because the longer you go without checking them, if there's a problem, it can go south really quickly. But once a week is usually plenty. If you have good moisture content in your worm bedding and you have them in an area where it's not too dry, and so I'm going to dig through here a little more. So again, I want to say I have not smelled one bad odor. Everything that you see here, you would think, oh man, that would smell horrible. Well, it doesn't. It actually smells pretty good to me. I mean, I like the smell of like earthy smell. If you've ever walked through a forest and you reach down and grab a handful of soil and smell it, that's what this smells like right now. And but if you're new to vermicomposting, it's always amazing how you can have no smells in it if you're doing it the right way. If you have bad odors, then you're probably overfeeding. There's something that's not right. bad odors should not be the norm for vermicomposting. Your nose can tell you a lot about the health of your worm bin. These guys, I would think these guys will probably be reproducing pretty soon because they are big. They are healthy. And so hopefully I'll be able to get couple worm cocoons before too long. Over here on the side, you can really see where they've been shredding the paper. They've been, all that is left over from where they've been eating the paper. Oh, look what I just found. Look, I spoke too soon. It's a golden nugget. It is a golden nugget. Okay, so they have been breeding a little bit, which I'm really excited to see. And so I'm gonna pick that little golden nugget out of there. Okay, here is that worm cocoon. And they look like little lemons. That's kind of how I describe them, and I've heard other people describe them. And this one's not bright yellow, so it might have been in here for a couple weeks. When they're real fresh, they're more of a kind of a bright yellow color. So that's what you look for the worm cocoons. And it kind of looks similar to the other one. I'm going to show you what the other one looked like that was probably like a cockroach egg capsule. But that is the kind of an amber colored worm cocoon. And they say there's like anywhere from 1 to 3 red wigglers inside of there. Okay, here's the other one that is not a red wiggler cocoon. And you can see it's more elongated. I'm not keeping this in the bin. I'm going to throw this away or flush it down the toilet because it's something I don't want in my bin, I don't think. But yeah, that one is not a red wiggler cocoon. All right, I'm going to cover this food back up. I am going to add a little bit more food into this worm bin. Also, with when you handle worm cocoons, you got to be really gentle because you can accidentally burst them, and you can squeeze them too hard and kill the worms. So they are really fragile. They're hard to pick up too. I struggle to pick them up when I find them. It does look like the worms have been breeding more than I thought in here. And I just talked about the worm cocoons that are older. They're more of an amber color. The ones that are brand new are a kind of a yellow, bright yellow. And there is one that I just stumbled across in here. So this makes me really happy that they're breeding already. I've only had the bin going for not even a month and they're breeding. That probably means they're healthy. They're in a really good established environment in this worm bin. They don't seem to breed when there's problems with the worm bin, when they're not very happy with their situation. If there's, a lot of bad smells in there, if it's too wet or too dry, it seems like they don't breed unless they're in ideal conditions. One thing you want to be careful about is to not mix your bedding together. It can be kind of tempting sometimes to just mix everything all together, but that's how I've lost worms, is mixing the bedding, because if something goes sour, instead of just, like here I have the, just in the middle I have the food scraps. All these are safe zones all the way around. So let's say that goes sour and turns anaerobic. Well, the worms can escape anywhere they want to. If I were to mix food scraps into the entire bedding, then the worms have nowhere to go if it turns sour, so then they just die. So I like to have safe zones for the worms to escape, and so it really is best to not mix your food scraps into your entire bedding. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some more shredded paper, and I'm going to soak it, get it the right moisture content, you know, do the squeeze test, and then I'm going to put it on top of here. And that will help re-moisten all this, some of this that's dried out. All right, I got the paper nice and moist. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and lay it over the top of the red worm mix, the bin that I have set up over here. So I'm just going to kind of put it over here, and then I'm going to go back and spread it out. If the worm bin was really dry, I would add water to the dry parts first before I put this stuff on. But really, with having the leaves on top, it kept it really moist. Like I was really surprised with how well the leaves did with holding the moisture in. I mean, it makes so much sense, like why leaves fall when they do, and you know, help preserve the soil and preserve moisture, and then break down and become part of the nutrients that the trees and other plants use as well. Okay, I have the fresh, moist, shredded paper added on top, and next what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some more veggie scraps, fruits and veggies. You know, one thing that's important to remember with vermicomposting is there's not always just one way or one right way to do it. And if you know, you'll watch a lot of YouTube videos and people are doing things differently, and that's okay. Really what matters is that your worms are healthy and reproducing and making worm castings. All right, this time I'm going to put the food scraps in this right corner. I left the ones that were over here in the middle section, and I'm going to alternate corners. I like to move around and not use the same spot. So while they're still breaking down this asparagus that's in here in the middle, this fresh veggies and fruits that I'm getting ready to add will have a chance to start breaking down over here. And then when it's ready, you know, when the worms know when it's ready, when the microorganisms have done their thing, and it's at the right, you know, whatever you want to call it, when it's ready, the red wigglers will come in and munch on it, just like they did with the asparagus. All right, so I got banana peel. I have a sweet potato, another banana peel, and let's see, then I'll add some celery in there too. And another piece of banana. I think that's all I'm going to do right now. And then I'm going to check back on this one in around about a week and see how they're doing. If you're wondering why I bury food scraps, that helps keep flies and other pests from getting in there. And I used to put fruit and veggie scraps on the surface, but what I noticed is that the flies got in there and laid their eggs, and then you got to mess with maggots, and those are no fun. So I like to bury my food scraps like 2 or 3 inches down, and flies and other pests are not as big of a problem for me when I do that. I'm going to continue to follow this same worm bin until I'm able to harvest the worm castings. So you can see the whole process start to finish. And we'll see how long it takes to get to that point.